Adaptability, not perfection. Good morning, coaches. Today I'm going to be talking through one of the kind of hallmark goals that we like to think about in terms of player development, and that is adaptability. When we think a quality, skillful player, that is a player who you could put into any environment, any situation, any position, and they generally are going to have the improvisational ability or adaptability to have the malleable quality to integrate themselves into that situation, whatever the conditions. And so when we recognize that is a quality that we want players to have, we can then start to think about how our practice activities and session design can reflect that as an end goal, as opposed to what we sometimes think and what I used to think as a coach is, perfection. We want players to be able to do certain things perfectly, have the right particular qualities in these kinds of things they do. We want you to receive the ball with this foot. We want you to be able to dribble like this in a perfect way. But really, that doesn't reflect the overall qualities that the most skillful players have, and that's adaptability. So the session right here that I'm going to be kind of talking through that kind of promotes this idea of adaptability as a goal rather than perfection is Duck, Duck, Goose. I've posted this session previously, and when I posted it, it was more looking at the defensive qualities of the player in yellow. But I'm going to talk about how this overall structure not only can be tailored to different particular habits, different particular qualities, attack or defense, but also is embedded with this idea of adaptability as an end goal, regardless of the specific attacking principle or defensive principle. So we have these kind of three versions, these three variations to kind of highlight, the basic iteration is we have our defenders in yellow who are defending these two goals, and we have this player in blue who's going to be attacking these two goals. Defenders, if they win it, they just have to get the ball across the line in order to score. And the ball here is in orange. So these three black dots are cones, and our attacker starts out on this cone, our defender starts out on this cone right next to the ball. And on the count of 3, 2, 1, go, these two players race around the next cone. And as soon as this player gets here, they move to attack. And so what we have here is effectively a 1v2. And so this player is racing to goal, this player is defending, this player is recovery chasing. This kind of dynamic start encourages a few different qualities that allow players to have to navigate the recovery defender. Which goal am I going to go to? Am I going to move towards this direction? But it really embodies a lot of the good habits that we could see from players in both attack and defense. Now, the adaptability quality here is important. Now, when we think about this iteration, we have this player starting on this cone, this side of this cone. It creates a situation of a problem of a 1v2 where there is certain information in certain areas. When this player receives the ball, they know and they can see out of the corner of their eye this recovery defender what they're doing. How can we encourage some variability to encourage adaptability using a similar problem but with a slightly different variation? So in the same iteration, version 2, we have a similar setup, and instead of starting out on opposite cones, these two players start on the same cone. And this is kind of a slightly easier variation, but it still encourages players to have to do things a little bit differently with a similar problem. 3, 2, 1, go. They race around opposing cones, and now both players are going to have to be challenged in a slightly different way, slightly different setup, a slightly extended space for the attacker, and now the defenders are going to have to defend a little differently, and the attacker gets a slightly different look at it as well. Are they going to try to race immediately towards this, or are they going to cut in, and how is this recovery defender going to operate? And finally, version 3, basically the same thing, except now when this player and this player race to get the ball, now the defenders are set up in a more central location. This one is a little bit more difficult because now this player has two defenders really close by that they're going to have to navigate as soon as they get the ball. Each of these variations presents a similar looking problem, but not the same problem. And this is definitely something you could do in a small group session with, obviously with 3 players. And you could set it up so you could do it with multiple players. You could actually set this up if you have enough small goals, which you could use cone goals as well. that you could use this with a big group, and you could use this with a variety of different age groups and skill levels, because it does create an opportunity to navigate similar problems that you're going to face not only at like a U8 level, but also even at like a U17 level. This is something I use with my high school players. It's kind of an intermixer to work on some of those kind of more quote-unquote technical outcomes that we want to see, because it's a very simplified version that we might incorporate in between to slightly higher external load kinds of problems. But this kind of thing definitely shows how when we think of adaptability as a goal, not perfection, these kinds of activities are really going to encourage and facilitate the kinds of emergent behaviors and solutions that we want players to be able to have whatever situation they face in a game. Adaptability, not perfection. Cheers.